Hello everyone and welcome to the CSS Selector series for the testers. This is our second tutorial. In this particular tutorial, we will learn about the attribute selectors. So let's begin. In our first tutorial, we started with the ID and the class, but it's not necessary that every time the web elements have the ID or the class attributes. So what we can do is that we can utilize the unique attributes like name, type, placeholder, and so on, so that we can reliably identify an element. So we can utilize the attribute selectors here. So what are the attribute selectors? So basically, they are used to target the elements based on the presence or the value of the attributes. So these attribute selectors are used to target elements based on the presence or value of their attributes. So let me go to the browser over here and let me show you what we are talking about. So here you see that we have different elements, right? And if you inspect any of these elements over here, for example, this one, though we have the ID for this one, assume that we don't have the ID. So we have name, placeholder. If we have these other attributes unique, so we can write an attribute based selector. Okay. Now, what is the syntax over here? So syntax is very simple over here. So element. So let me write it down. So element and followed by the large brackets. And basically, we need to provide the attribute. Now, in this case, basically, it targets element with a specific attribute. Okay. Then, if we talk about, because we are talking about the presence and value, right? So, what we can also do is that element, and then we say attribute equals to value. So, value of that particular attribute as well. Now, this will targets element with a specific value. Okay, specific value. We can also utilize a there's a symbol which is known as, let me show you. So what you can do is that you can go like this way, attribute, and this is a hat sign like this one, and equals to value. Now what is the difference between the second one and the third one? So basically we are saying that the hat means that it starts with this value. So we are saying that target an element which starts with this value, So hat is used for starts with. Okay. And then let me copy this one from here and paste it over here. Then another sign we use over here is basically a dollar sign. So dollar sign means that ends with the value. Okay. Ends with. And then we have steric as well. So steric means that it contains. Okay. So basically contains the value. Right. Now let's go to the browser over here and see some practical examples for this one. So now what we'll do is that based on the syntax we just learned, let's try to identify the elements uniquely. For example, the highlighted one, the email, if I inspect this one, so we can simply write with the bracket name is equals to email. Okay. And close the bracket. So we need to provide a code. You see that we have successfully identified the email field uniquely. Now, here, though we have ID, but assume that we don't have ID, we simply utilized a unique name attribute to write a CSS selector. Again, as automation tester, our focus and why we are learning this concept is that we need to identify the element uniquely. Okay, and let's go with any other here. And for example, this is the option, an option for a female one. So here we see that we have, besides ID, we have a type, we have a name, we have a value. So now let's use the value and the type, because the type radio will have come up with the multiple elements over here. So for example, if I say type is equals to radio, so here you see that we have 1 of 7. This means that this particular selector is matching with 7 elements. Now in order to make it unique, I know to use the value. So what I'll use that, again large bracket, then I will say the attribute I want to use. So I want to use a value equals to female and close the bracket. Now you see that we have identified or located this element uniquely 1 of 1. So we can use any attributes, and if I give you example of any placeholder, for example, if I go here, inspect this one, and here you see that we have a placeholder which says enter your first name. So I will say bracket placeholder, okay, and equals to, paste this one and close the bracket. Now you see that again we have successfully identified the value using a placeholder attribute. So if I scroll down, so it's not necessary that you will be seeing a name or a placeholder. These are the common attributes. So let me show you some other attribute over here. So scroll down and we have this. So for example, we have this terms and condition over here, right? Let's break this one. And here, if we want to locate this label. Now label has only one attribute, which is for. For equals to terms. So what I can do is that simply I'll say for equals to terms. Okay. So you see that we have successfully identified this particular element uniquely using a CSS selector. Okay. And if I go here, you see that we have different ways. Starts with. So what we can do is that simply attribute, then the hat sign. So I say here attribute hat sign, and so still you see that because this starts with the T, and again it's a unique, so that's why we can go with this particular selector. And here we have used starts with, and if I go with the ends with, so ends basically it says MS, and again as soon as I move to MS, it's now not locating this one because we are using starts with, not the ends with. Okay, so for ends with we can use a dollar sign. So as soon as I provided a dollar sign, so this attribute ends with the MS, right? So now again the element is basically uniquely identified. In a similar way, we can go with the this historic, which is contains. So if I say it contains MS, So again, you see that we have successfully located this element using a CSS selector. And here in today's tutorial, what we did is that we have identified the elements based on the attribute selectors. And why we use that? Because in most of the cases, the ID or class might not be available. So what you can do? So you can utilize the other unique attributes. You can use single attribute, multiple attributes. You can say start with, ends with, or contains these kind of things to make it unique for your automation testing.